Hello, I'm Mitra Sorrells, and I'm delighted to welcome Greg Abbott. He is DataArt's Senior Vice President for Travel, Transportation, and Hospitality. Welcome, Greg.
Thank you, Mitra. That's a mouthful, right? That title.
Yeah.
Cut off some of the things
I'm
there.
getting used to saying it though. We've done this several years now, so time for our check-in. And we have certainly been talking about generative AI for nearly 3 years. Hard to believe we're coming up on that 3-year anniversary of the
Very
release of
true.
ChatGPT. I know
Yep.
DataArt works across many verticals. How do you see Gen AI changing the landscape for travel tech companies compared to what you're seeing in other industries?
That's a good question. And yeah, it's lovely to talk to you again about AI. I think we're going to be talking about AI for some time. But
Yeah.
the unique thing is we are juxtaposed to other industries. So we serve finance and retail and healthcare. And so we get to see what those other industries are doing. And so maybe first I'll talk about what's different. So travel is a laggard in data readiness compared to other industries. I was reading Sitecore's digital maturity study, which covers 700 brands in travel and hospitality, and most are at a low maturity. And if you couple that with the multimodal nature of a customer journey, which is dealing with many different companies, um, which people are booking in different places. So a lot of fragmentation on a complete journey with their booking, right? Look at that. And then you sprinkle in, regulation and global standards like think GDPR, NDC, and UE 261. And so together, these elements make travel unique in that it has some pretty formidable challenges for use of advanced AI, right? Which likes clarity on data. And we'll go into that a little bit more, but I'm sure in our questions and talk today. But in
Yeah.
terms of the similarities, our own research, we did a report on data and AI readiness across the industries that we serve, and there are nearly blockers in every industry. So we're not alone. The typical blockers are data governance, the transformation that's going on really in software engineering, right, which is a change to what we call the advisory age, where engineers are working with co-pilots. And then I think just general AI readiness, it's still quite new. And so in those areas, travel is not unique, right? So
Yeah.
travel's complexity, it's really, it is more to tackle than other industries. But because I am the optimist, I believe that along that journey, there's going to be loads of opportunity for innovation. So I keep looking at the opportunity as we reinvent ourselves.
Well, so let's keep that optimistic line of discussion going here. So, what would you say are some of the most promising or practical use cases of Gen
Hmm.
AI that you're seeing in travel today?
Yeah, good question. So right now, the most promising use cases, they're not the futuristic ones, although we love to dream and think about all the things that AI is going to do. They're practical, ROI driven. And what we're seeing are use cases like in the back office, we're seeing thousands of hours saved by contract loading, queue processing, workflow, content matching, enhancement, refund automation, commission reconciliation, and just repetitive data tasks that are boring to talk about, but magical for the customer experience, the plumbing, right?
Right.
And then on the customer side, in call centers, personalization is a huge opportunity. And Gartner, lit the fuse here by saying that personalization can lift revenues by 10 to 15% in travel and hospitality. Now, there's many different definitions of personalization, but here think upsell, cross sell, recommendations. Also there's voice sentiment analysis when somebody's upset. It can escalate a call. Proactive trip delay and interruption tools and these types of things are really going to make an impact on the customer journey. And then in terms of internal productivity, we're already seeing 30 to 50% engineering and quality assurance and quality engineering productivity boosts, which is huge, right? So AI can help boost, like breaking through that legacy code modernization problem that we see a lot in travel.
Yeah.
So really the I think the breakthroughs today are, removing friction from costly processes, or, unlocking personalization in the call centers, mostly where ROI is clear.
So, there certainly is a lot of excitement. Some might even say hype about AI, and it can get easy to kind of overlook anything negative in the midst of that environment. But I'd love to hear you share a bit on any risks or limitations that you see, particularly for travel companies.
Risks and limitations, yeah. The risks are, for the risks are real, and they go beyond the hype, right? I always wonder where we're at in the hype cycle, but
Yeah.
it's the first and maybe the most obvious one is trust, right? I mean, travelers are open to AI, and I believe it was Focusrite research where you guys were saying that 80% or something of people are using Gen AI for trip planning. Quote me if the stats wrong there, but I thought it was somewhere around there. So, but frustration rises quickly when the outputs aren't reliable, right? When you're not getting
Yes.
something that you can't trust, and so users are not going to tolerate inaccurate or generic results, right? And second, maybe many companies simply don't have their data structured or governed in a way that makes AI trustworthy. Regulation is tightening, right? The EU AI Act, for example, requires, transparency, explainability, and accountability for their customer-facing applications. Means you're on the hook for what your fancy AI chatbot says, right? And this means
Yeah.
that travel firms need to have the guardrails in place. And there are other limitations. I think, well, actually, Focusrite has done a good job covering some of these in your trend series, so I won't repeat
Oh,
them. But the ones that stick are, digital identity, right?
yeah.
Standards and interoperability. AI thrives on structured standard inputs, but much of travel still runs on PDFs and legacy APIs and
Right.
inconsistent schemas, right? So, my view, the biggest limitation isn't the LLMs, the models, right? It's whether companies have the right data foundations and governance to deploy AI responsibly, and I think we'll hear a lot more about that in the coming years. So, without that, you risk losing your customer faster, the customer trust faster than you can gain efficiency. So I think,
Yeah.
I think people should watch that carefully.
It's an interesting time for sure. So, as we're thinking then about some of those examples that you just gave and kind of some of those risks and limitations, what advice might you give to, let's say, a mid-size online travel agency or an airline or a hotel group that really wants to get started with Gen AI or do more with Gen AI, but they don't have a big budget? What
Mm.
advice would you give them?
Mm. Good question. Well, I think first they should consider those budget constraints positive or neutrally positive, maybe, because most of the big Gen AI projects have fallen way short of
Yeah.
expectations. Nature, we were just talking about this before the call, but I remember last year in our talk, we were looking back at 2023 at that time, and the reports showed like 4% of AI apps made it to production.
Yeah.
Well, 2024 saw a modest increase to 11%.
Okay.
And that what that means is there's still a lot of failing, right? And there's still a lot of work in progress. So I think budget constraints are not a bad thing, right? I don't think you want to go big at this point. My advice is pick a use case with clear cost savings and some revenue upside, prove it, and then decide on what to scale next. For a mid-size OTA or hotel group, that might mean piloting AI and Copilot in the call center, right, to reduce costs and increase productivity, or it could mean like testing personalized marketing campaign, which can help lift revenues.
Yeah.
And yeah, with probably two, I would say don't overlook partnerships, right? We spoke
Yeah.
about this last time. Gartner showed that the companies that are pulling ahead will collaborate with specialists who understand data and AI, right? And so I probably would say small targeted pilots, measurable ROI, and the right partner. And oh, sorry, and if you sorry, if you can. start baking in governance from day one, even if your
Yeah.
pilot is small, right? Because it's something that will build over time. Sorry, that's a
No, no, those
run
are
on
all great.
answer there, Major.
Absolutely. No, those are all great points. And it's interesting because I've never really thought about it with that framing that actually maybe a constrained budget is a good thing, to kind
Yeah,
of have those guardrails built in. That makes a lot of sense because, as we know, every day there's some sort of new update. And if money was no object, you might just be running in a million
balloon. Just
directions. Yeah.
your project balloons, and then you don't give the results, and then the business stakeholders are pounding on your desk, wondering when they're going to see the results, and then you get a fail,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is I think there's been some reports on about the bad things coming from AI and the lack of results. So I think it's be judicious.
Yes. Yes. Good advice. So finally, let's look ahead a bit. In your view, what does the next phase of Gen AI adoption in travel look like? Let's say over the next 2 to 3 years. We won't talk much farther out than that because, it's moving so fast.
Yeah, yeah, the timeline is difficult to predict.
Yeah.
In my eyes, we're witnessing the probably the most exciting period of tech in our lifetime, right? I personally expect it to radically change travel operations. Again, you hear the optimism. To me, this is big as the dot com era, right? The internet being born. But I know that you're talking about the 2 to 3 year horizon. So if we focus in on there, I look at it in the first horizon maybe is the one we're in now, right? Which is all about productivity, co-pilots, developer agents, marketers saving time, reducing costs, So I think there's this productivity focus right now. And I think there's a lot of money on the table around those productivity gains. I don't think it's small, right? But I think that's sort of first, like where we're at right now. Maybe the second, unfortunately, to follow, I know this is contrary to what people would love to see, but the second horizon maybe is customer experience. So I know, we were talking about how the adoption of Gen AI is coming along really quickly in the trip planning, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people say that it improves. Probably 2 years ago, I did my personal trip, our European family trip, all with ChatGPT. At that time, it was a fantastic trip. And the sort of the opportunity, it tells me that like the conversational search, the personalized servicing, real-time trip support, like these things are going to come as the next step, right? That's kind of like it's because customers are going in that particular way anyway. So I would say that's probably the third horizon, of course, is I just don't know how long it's going to take, but it's industry transformation. So this is where, in my eyes, agentic AI comes in. And so right
Yeah.
now you've got these LLM powered agents, right, that can guide a traveler to a supplier website, but then they can't transact, right, because those sites are built for humans. So I'm talking about the agent can't transact, right? So they're not built for machine interface. And so the real opportunity, I think, that sort of next beyond the customer experience, customer journey, is for suppliers, airlines, hotels, cruise lines, like to build their own AI agents that expose inventory, negotiate offers, they complete bookings directly, right, that are coming from trip planning. And so now I kind of imagine the traveler's personal AI concierge taking, basically talking seamlessly to an airline's agent to book a ticket or to assign my seat or to get an upgrade or do a date change. And so I would think in the next few years, the suppliers who start to experiment and look at AI to AI transaction models are going to have more
Yeah.
control over the distribution economics, I think, and perhaps I would even say even stronger customer relationship and customer loyalty.
Yeah. It's almost hard to believe that it feels like it's very close, actually. What we're hearing about everything developing, like it really feels like some of these concepts you're talking about.
Yeah.
Um,
So I
you
was
know,
I was on the series, the fifth of your trend series with Mike Coletta, and I was
yes.
listening to the digital ID, and we have a catch up every, I think, once a quarter, and so I had a call with him after that, and we got to talk about look, I think a lot of times I'm down in the bowels of the organ, so there's like the people who are looking at things like from the customer perspective, and then I watch the tech and I look at the sort of elements that are required to come together, and it counterbalances my optimism. So
Yeah.
I still
Yeah.
think there's a lot of work to do around being able to broker the trust, and then how do I transact, and how do agents verify that they're transacting on behalf of the right person with the right identity and all
Yeah.
those types of things. I think that's going to take a little bit longer than we think
Yeah.
to hatch. So
Okay. Well, we'll all be watching, right? It's certainly,
absolutely,
as you said, an
absolutely.
incredibly exciting time to be in the midst of all of this. So,
Yeah, yeah, and looking forward to the discussions at Focusrite in November in San Diego.
yes, it should be good. So, wonderful, Greg Abbott from DataArt. Thank you so much for your time as always.
Thank you, Mitra.